Well, good morning and welcome back to Life Connect. It's really great that you're able to join me today, and we're having a brilliant week as we hear some real stories of people who've met with God in different stages of life and in different places. And I know you've been enjoying it. And I have a very special person with me today. I have Aderyn. Hi, Aderyn.
Hi, Tim. So good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's great. No, so those of you regulars to Counties Life Connect and are familiar with Counties will know Aderyn because she's one of our trustees at Counties. And she's also contributed to Life Connect a number of times, but you will not know her story, or at least some of her story. So I thought we would try and delve into that a little bit. So I'm going to dive straight in and roll back the clock a little bit, Aderyn. And yeah. And so the your life, it's very easy for people to see you on screen, and you always look very happy and smiley and everything looks wonderful, but I don't think that's always been the case. And obviously I've got to know you a little bit more, and I know that your dad had a major stroke when he was like 40 and you were about 8 at the time, and this had a big impact upon your life, didn't it? So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. That was a major time in my life at 8 years old. My dad had a stroke which left him severely debilitated, and he had to have major therapy and recuperation. It took a long time. He lost the ability to walk, to talk, to eat. He literally had to learn everything all over again. And he was a very active person. He was very strong, very big. And as an 8-year-old girl, I was the apple of his eye. And for my brother and I, it was a big life change. And for my mum, even more so. She had to stop work and come home and look after him and deal with everything, all the emotions and that's going on. So it was a real big change in our lives. He did get back to a point where he was living well. And unfortunately, he then had 2 years later another series of minor strokes, a heart attack, and that left him in a completely locked in situation. So he then spent the rest of his life in hospital and couldn't talk, was fed through a tube. And that was basically how I grew up knowing my dad.
Yeah, it's really tough. I think for most of us who've had fathers present most of the time and active, it's hard for us to really get our head around that. But that must have been horrendous. And so he died, I think, when you were about 20, just going into your exam finals. So, well, I mean, that was tough enough as it was. And of course, the other significant guy in your life, your grandfather, also died around that time. And just sort of picking up the bits and pieces that you share with me off air. I know that like relationships weren't necessarily going according to plan in your life, and I got a real sense that there was kind of a spiritual barrenness that you were feeling. And then a few years later, I first met you because you suddenly strolled merrily into our church building, or into a school, as we were meeting in the school at the time, with this young man, Scott, who was your husband, and your daughter, Vesper, who was, I don't know, 1 or whatever she was at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what was going on?
Oh, there's so much going on there, Tim. I'm just going to go back to that bit where you said that there's spiritual barrenness. When I was doing my finals at university, my dad died. Then, my dad, who had been absent in my life, and then the other, like you say, significant father figure in my life who had been present, they both died around about the same time. And it was obviously really horrific. I would say it was more spiritual warfare. If looking back on my life, and even when in the midst of it, I felt this pull and this push and pull, this tug, and it was a spiritual warfare over my life. And that was God, fighting for me. And then obviously the devil trying to, through the words of the world and through the shouts and the comments of people and situations, and using those really hard experiences to kind of wheedle his way in and just try and knock me off path, which I did completely stray. And I never I will say this, never ever denied God or denied my faith, but I certainly wasn't living in a relationship with Jesus. But then coming back when you first met me, and walking into the church with my husband, I mean, the fact that I was married was a big deal, and saw actually how much God had been fighting my corner. That was a big deal for me to get married and commit my life to someone. But we came to church after a long absence because Vesper, our first child, was not yet one. And through that experience of becoming a mum and just being changed that way, both physically, mentally, emotionally, and then spiritually, God had spoken to me. And he made it very, very clear to me that even despite all the things I had done, the times I'd veered off his path, the times that I had chosen my own way, he had still been there and he had been present. And despite that, he still loved me. And he loved me not just in this, the way the world talks about love, in this kind of happy, clappy way. No, he loved me fiercely. He loved me wholly. And through, seeing me through the eyes of his son, I was then made worthy, which you and I have discussed. And I'm not worthy without Christ, but through him I am. And it was this absolute dawning that, I love my child fiercely as a mum. And then God was like, you see how you love her? This is how much I love you. And it was really, really intense for me. And it was a period of healing. And then I thought, oh my goodness, I don't want my children to grow up not knowing who Jesus is. And I, despite all the things that had happened to me, God was constant in my life. There are many highs with God, as well as, the lows with God, that he was there. And I wanted that for them. I wanted them to know him, but I also wanted God in my marriage. I wanted my marriage to be vertical. I wanted us to be standing and looking at God together. I wanted us to be, with heart postures to him and walking together, and that our unity as husband and wife to be bonded through Christ. So we made the choice to come to church. Now, my husband wasn't a Christian, and he is a good man. He really is. I mean, he married me.
You're not biased at all, of course.
But you've met him, and he was unsure, but because he loved me, he was willing to go, and he knew it was meant so much to me. And I wanted to go to like a bigger church, a really like all singing or dancing, because I thought that might get his attention.
Was our church not big enough for you?
Well, it's still a small town church, still a rural church. So, but my husband, he had the wisdom and the foresight to go, no, Aderyn, if we're going to go to church, we're going to go to a church in our community, and we're going to belong to something that serves our community. So he had a servant's heart way before me. So we came, and it's been a journey with Forest Community Church that's been, truly remarkable.
Yeah, it's been really exciting to see you develop and to grow, and to see Scott as well, and on that spiritual journey. So just one question, which is a big one, but I want the shortest answer you can find, and that is, what is perhaps the biggest thing that you've learned on your learning you've had on your spiritual journey to date?
Oh goodness. Oh yeah, there's so many things. I'm sure if you speak to any Christian or any person who's on their faith journey, there'll be so many things. But I think I'll go back to what I said earlier, that my biggest lesson is that God isn't sitting there idly waiting for you. He is patient and he does wait for you for sure, but he actively pursues you. And he pursued me, and he pursued my husband. And that is beautiful to know that the God of the universe, who created everything, creation is his entire being, and he pursues us every day, and he wants to be involved, and in the most wonderful way. And I love that. And I said to you earlier, I may have known God with my head my whole life, But when I came to Forest Community Church and I really entered into a real relationship with Jesus, then I knew him with my heart. And when you absolutely surrender that heart and give it to him fully, he's so gentle with it. And just he will live in every aspect of your life and start changing you and growing you and developing you. And the things that Scott and I have seen in these last 6 years we've been with Forest Community Church and just really digging into our faith and digging into our relationship with God have been just remarkable. Yeah, so just know that God is fighting for you. Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, thanks for sharing. Really appreciate that, because you've shared some really personal and deep things with us today. And I'm sure everyone watching would have been really touched and encouraged. And for those of you who are watching, just to, maybe you're looking in today thinking you don't feel loved. Well, as Aderyn said, God loves you and he's pursuing you, and he wants you to feel and to experience his love today. So just reach out. And maybe it's a Christian friend that you know of. You just need to pick the phone up and just chat to them and unpack that, because God wants you to know and to experience his love fully in your life, so that your heart might be healed and restored and invigorated, just like Aderyn's has been, which has been a beautiful thing to see. So thanks for joining. And tomorrow we have the last in this series, and a very special week as we hear some great stories of how God has met with different people at different stages in their life. But in everyone, it's been very real, very personal, and just what they needed. So have a great day and God bless. Bye.